So I think this is number 8 in the series. So we were finishing off, I was talking about the Magna Carta, I believe, and the constitutional system of what we're supposed to have and what we do have. So let's just play a little bit more of this video and then we'll get back into continuing from there.
You believe in rather than just go home, all right? We get paid to do this, mate. I'm just as over this fucking protest as you are. What protest? I mean lockdown. Right? Unfortunately, I've got to do what I've got to do. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You're choosing to do it. I'm not skilled to do anything else, mate. So unfortunately, at this time of my life, that's what I have to do.
So there's a man telling you that he's fully in charge of choices, is he? Yeah. So let's look into some terms here. Let's see what I can bring up. Let's just start with ignorance, shall we? Because this is really important, because before the last one I was talking about the maximum law that says ignorance of the law is no excuse. So let's just bring up what ignorance is. Let's move this across so you can see it better. Ignorance is a refusal of knowledge of truth due to the presence of fear. I don't know, to me that speaks really loudly what I just witnessed. Ignorance negatively influences the quality of our decision-making process in every area of our lives. Ignorance is the willful disregard of life-serving knowledge. I mean, to me, when I read that and what I just saw a moment ago, that just sums it up perfectly. So let me go to another one. This is a quote by Samuel Adams. Now, I'm of the opinion that a lot of these people we believe, were there, to benefit us, were actually telling us what was coming. That they were really part of the whole structure, and they just, their system of they've got to let you know, so then they don't take responsibility for how they've cornered you into it. No people will tamely surrender their liberties when knowledge is diffused and virtue observed. Virtue preserved, should I say. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant, so ignoring of knowledge, and debauched, so that means debauching is like that real self-indulgent behaviour, in their manners. I mean, to me, every time I think of the Melbourne Cup, that's the first word that comes up for me is debauchery, right? What you see there and what we call culture is phenomenal, Like you think about Australia, how we just associate Australia with drinking. I mean, tell me a more soul disconnecting experience you can think of. That's got to be right up there. And that's what we call our identity. I mean, wow. That's why we were prime targets for this, why we are right at the front, because this is how far the debauchery is coming to the consciousness of the collective here. Debauched in their manners, they sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. So self-explanatory, right? We've done it to ourselves. And that's the only way it can be done, is through that ignorance. Now what's the other one I want to bring up? Oh yeah, slavery. I like this one. This is, so let me just move this one out of the way. So the Milgram experiment, I don't know if anyone knows about that. I don't want to go into it too much, but the crux of it shows the effect of hierarchy structures, the effect that hierarchy structures have on decision making. And I remember in the past ones I've spoken about the domination hierarchy structure we've been living under. Well, this is what happens to individual accountability, right? And this is related directly to these men in costume that we call police, right? Denial of responsibility for acting out of conscience is commonplace when one believes they are subordinate to a superior, right? That's what this guy's saying. I have to. I don't want to, I have to. That's what I'm being paid to do, right? That's how this guy draws his value and how he contributes to society. That's how he believes it. That's his intellect, creating that idea, this self-preserving idea. Now, this is a question I'd love every single one watching this to ask anyone who calls themselves a police officer holding that uniform or wearing that costume. Who bears the greater burden of responsibility? The one giving the orders or the one enforcing them? And let's see if you get an answer. I'm willing to bet you'll get avoidance or they'll say the one giving the orders, right? In actual fact, people giving the orders are the minority. It's the ones enforcing them and carrying them out. They're in the majority. So if none of them are doing it, these orders stand for nothing, right? So the personal responsibility is on every single one, whether they're in the medical profession, you know what I mean? Because they're the ones who are part of it too. What we're enduring today with this COVID stuff. You know, all the people who are in the departments that work, you know, under this hierarchy structure, every single one of them who's just doing their job, it all falls on them. You know, there's police officers, which I call private mercenaries, you know, who are working for a private corporation. They too, you know, they are manifesting the very thing that they say they're against, like he says himself, right? So there is your slavery right there. I mean, it couldn't be more in your face. So that's kind of, you know, you look at the system we were supposed to have, right? And what it would look like. Would we be having, if this was our rule of law, that the law rules, would we be having this happening with these police, so-called police officers, right? And that's all because we don't have this centerpiece, right? This is our centerpiece, the judiciary. That was to keep these other two things on each flank in check. That's what it's for. That's why it's in the middle. And it's not happened. And also the one above, right? So back to Article 61, what I was saying in the previous one, is that it has three components to it, right? The first one is to take the oath, and the oath is just a statement of intention to stand under your protection that's been agreed to by the people with the actual head of state who's in charge of ensuring that happens, right? With the organizational body that they command, right? That's what that is. The oath is to that protection, right? So once you do that, the next step is to collect the evidence. And the evidence is by putting every single individual who's acting, you know, for government or some version of some private corporation. I mean, not the government isn't. That is actually enforcing the slavery system, right? Because, like I said, common law under the British Constitution, its highest function is to ensure that an innocent man walks free, right? So these notices, there's 5 of them, and they will actually serve as evidence to a jury of the people as to whether they have been acting, the ones who are noticed, out of conscience, or if they've gone and suppressed it and just followed orders, right? Then they can't say they didn't know, because those notices have all the evidence of what I've been saying and more. And they have the opportunity to stand with the people, because that's what those notices allow them, right? Because the first one is like a notice of lawful standing, or it's a conditional acceptance of someone's demands on you. The second one is like a default, an opportunity to cure. The third one is default. The fourth one lets them know that they're aiding and abetting treason, and that they're committing and they're using coercion. And the last one is like a notice to stop, right? So that is what the evidence the jury will have before them, that they have had plenty of opportunity to correct what they've been doing. And if they don't, that stands to prove that they have a malicious intent in maintaining what they're doing. So that's what these police officers would require to actually stand in front of the people and prove they haven't, right? That's how powerful it is, right? That's the second phase. And the third phase is that we once there's enough people who have this knowledge, then we get our public buildings back, because the public buildings are where the power is, right? So all these courts, they're ours. All these common law court groups, they want to set up these alternative assemblies. Do you know what I mean? All they're doing is granting authority to the criminal ones that are in place at the moment. These criminals have taken our buildings and use it for their purposes, not for what we've granted authority to them for. So all these government departments, they're all ours. They're all our buildings. Parliament, that's ours. You know, you think of any building that's called government, that's actually the people's property. No, not these individuals that are in there acting, you know, for corporations. It's not their property, it's ours. So the third phase is that once you get that knowledge, then you start seizing the buildings lawfully. And that makes sure that the police need to do their actual job of what they are supposed to be doing, what they were given authority to do. And the people that are coming before the courts are those criminals, those very ones, you know, in those buildings, especially in the top end, so everyone in Parliament, they become through court. All the public servants, especially at the top end, they're all coming, all the police chiefs and everyone in that management, they're all coming, right? So even the constable, if the constable doesn't do their job, they're coming into court. Every single one of them is accountable. So every single police officer that's kept their job up through this whole time, they would all need to come to court. That's just how powerful this is. And once you have that knowledge, then only then, if all of us have it, right, that is how we stop this massive fraud, this massive global takeover. But we all need to have this knowledge, and that's what's missing, So when this, that's what I wanted to do. I want to talk about monarchy, right? So the way that the head of state, the way it was granted power is that it's a job, right? So once your term is up, someone new gets elected into it, right? Well, what do? They created the idea that the monarchy has divine right to rule. And so then they just hand it down to their family, like their bloodlines. That is not, the people never gave authority to that, right? So that's how you know that we've not had a legitimate head of state in that constitutional system for years, well before Australia became, its own country. Like this was going on well before that, right? So we've not even had constitutional monarchs in place to grant authority to even have all these colonies have their own constitutions. So the fraud has been that bad, right? So all this bloodline passing down, the ideas of the throne, royalty, all these sort of terms, they're all there to subvert your consciousness, to make you believe that something that doesn't exist in nature actually exists. That's what it's been doing. So that's how powerful this is, right? And so once you know this information, because I've done this, I've had police officers stand before me, and I've actually quoted the caution card, right? And this is what it sounds like. I must caution you, where I stand under Article 61 of the Magna Carta 1215, which was invoked in March 2001, according to constitutional protocols. Any attempt to enforce unlawful acts, statutes, or legislative laws upon myself will be taken as an act of high treason, for which you will stand trial before a jury of the people, and which still carries the gallows. Now, just going to pause that for a moment. You would have seen some images in front of the Victorian Parliament of people carrying gallows, home-made ones. And then you would have heard the media just totally flip out about it. Well, what most people don't know is the 1571 Treason Act is still in force across the entire Commonwealth, right? And that is the gallows, right? If you're found guilty of treason, you are going to go there. And that's why they're panicking, right? They don't want you to know that. They don't want you getting any ideas that is an actual thing that's waiting for them. So that's why they're fully, anytime they see them crank it, you know that there's some truth there, right? And they try and turn it on us that there's something the matter with us, that we're defective for even thinking that. It's not that, it's just because it's actually true. And so then the caution goes on to say, I urge you to consider Nuremberg. I was just doing my job as no defense. Remember how we spoke about personal responsibility? As evidenced at those trials. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. That's a maximum law. Anything you say or any action taken by you against myself will be used before the jury. To deny constitutional law is sedition at common law and carries full asset stripping and life in prison. Do you understand? So when I said that to the men acting as police officers, they went silent, right? They just dropped and went silent, and they went limp, and then turned around and walked away in silence. It's like I didn't exist. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That's the power. That means these guys know that they've taken an oath to protect the people, and they've been doing the opposite. And they know what's really waiting for them, right? And that's the thing. If you understand this power, then that's when you say to them, right? You understand what I've just said to you, right? You're walking away, but you understand that that is what's waiting for you, is that when the people finally get to the place where their consciousness is elevated to know just how far removed the system has been from what they needed to have and everything they've been robbed of their entire lives, you know what I mean? You're going to be standing for, because you're the one who they gave authority to protect them from this. And instead of protecting them from this, you actually ensured they were even more enslaved. You know, that is a war crime. That's why treason is the highest crime, because it's higher than murder, because it's actually the murder of an entire nation. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. Every single crime stems from treason. That's why it's so severe, the penalties. We can't have it. And the cabal knew that, right? That deep staters, they knew this. That's why they had to get this out of our consciousness, because they knew that trial by jury system that we have kneecaps their entire ambition, and that police wouldn't be doing this to their people. It'd be the politicians that the police would be sending into the courts, right? They're the ones they'll be arresting. That is what their true role is, right? That's what they need to be doing now. And that was well past due, actually. And they still carry on enslaving the people. And so, you know, if these police officers understand that, they wouldn't be doing it, but they refuse to, right? And that's ignorance, to be ignorant of knowledge. Because what's going to happen is that full asset stripping they're waiting, that's coming for them, the reason why they went to work to collect their paycheck, support their families like they claim, well, the family's going to be left with nothing because it's full asset stripping. You know what I mean? So everything they went to work for is just going to be taken away. And the only thing that's going to be left for their family is the shame of knowing how they survived all this time. They survived from the profit of crime, that their parent was a war criminal. This is the knowledge that we need to be sharing with these people who are in costume, carrying these, you know, deadly weapons, right? Is that they are war criminals by doing what they're doing. And what's waiting for them under the British Constitution, which we're still under. We're not under this Australia false, fraudulent piece of paper that is called the Act, the 1901 Constitution of Australia Act. We're not under that. We are actually under this, because that's the only thing that people ever agreed to, right? In full conscience, right? So that's what's waiting for them, is hanging or life in prison. Either way, it's full asset stripping. And then what's left, you know? And do you think that once whoever's left, then that each one of these officers isn't going to be found? There isn't going to be someone who doesn't know them and where to find them. And so there's going to be no place to hide. So these officers, when they go home at night and they take off their costume and it's just them as a man, they can't puff themselves up anymore. They've just got their conscience to deal with. That is going to imprint, you know, and stain in their consciousness, that knowledge, right? And that's what we need to keep doing, is telling them what's coming for them. Because eventually, if more and more of us know it, the less power they have, the more likely they are to actually turn on the side of the people. Because when they see what's coming for them, that's the only thing that's motivating. Because right now, the only thing that's motivating is still self-preservation, right? So it's just a different way of using that motivator they have of self-preservation. So just keep that in mind, guys, because that's where our true power is. And that's why I started with this video of the port guys and how they've been enslaving the population. So I'm hoping that to help. And let's, anyone has any suggestions of any more details they'd like, I'm more than happy to cover it.